Repent! Repent! The Antichrist has arrived. Hi, Jules from WhatCulture.com.
Am I the Antichrist?
Well, I didn't say that. No, I'm just saying hello. You make those leaps. It's up to you. I'm Peter from WhatCulture.com.
And I'm Jules from WhatCulture.com.
Yes, you are. And you've been playing a scary game over the past, 2 days?
Yes, I've been playing Red Barrel's newest sequel to Outlast, Outlast 2.
Yeah.
And it is bloody terrifying in places.
It is. You had your first session at Ben Potter's house.
I did indeed.
We watched it. I was there, Ben was there at his house, as he would be. And
it'd be a bit weird if he wasn't.
It would be a bit weird. We went to Ben's house and played Outlast together. And I mean, I don't know if Ben Potter has an opinion on this game because he spent most of the time texting.
Yeah,
but it might be
texting.
Yeah, it's probably just phone. Because it's a scary game. Hey, look, I'm not having a go at Ben Potter for not liking scary games.
He doesn't like spoops.
No.
Big or small, no spoops.
Not really, no. But I watched, and I thought it was scary and it was interesting, and I want to know what your first impressions are.
Well, first impressions for me, as I'm sure that many people who are going to pick up this game will find, it's slightly like Resident Evil 7. Did you get that vibe as well?
I did get that vibe as well. I even got Resident Evil 4 vibes from it as well.
Yes, yeah, because basically it does share quite a lot of similarities, and this isn't intentional. They didn't just look at this and just think, oh, let's copy Resident Evil 7. It was way too far.
Well, yeah, it's only been out,
that
came out in what, like December or November or something?
Yeah, they couldn't have just basically aped their style, but it is like very coincidental that it stars, like an investigative journalist going in to find the death of a woman, or at least find out what's happened to her, and then there's a religious cult that has been segregated from the rest of the world. They're all kind of like shabby peasants who believe in like the supernatural and things like that, and then you've got monsters, and then you've also got the fact that the main bad guy is called Daddy,
and they've got your girlfriend,
so I mean there are a lot of similarities, but
they're tropes, like,
I mean it's one of those things where like anything that apes that style, people could just say, well, it's aping Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like it's things like that,
Blair Witch, something like that.
But beyond those, this is a very, very different beast. Like, it is really, really cool in the way that it approaches horror. Because my biggest worry for it was that it was marketed as being an open world horror thing. And not an open world like a GTA sandbox, but more sort of like less corridors and more sort of towns to explore and things like that.
Yeah.
And I was really worried because the one thing I find is that horror sometimes should be structured. It should be fed to a person because that's where you can control the situation.
Exactly, yeah.
The thing that I found with games like Dead Space, for example, was that I would be walking along and a scary moment would happen, but I wouldn't be looking in the exact right direction and I'd miss it.
I missed a couple of things in Dead Space, and I mean, partly you're like, oh, I'm glad I didn't see whatever that was.
Very true,
There's blood here now, but whatever. But at the same time, you do feel like, look, I'm playing a scary game. I kind of want to be scared by it, and I'm missing out on some of these moments. And
I mean, you look at the one of the best rated horror games recently, which was PT. I mean, it never fully got to a real game, but that demo is held aloft as being one of the best.
Definition of linear.
Yeah, and it is so linear, but because of that structure, it meant that they were able to control the scares, and it made that it was really impactful. And I was worried that it wasn't going to have that.
Right.
But luckily, what they have done, the developers seem to have found very clever ways of giving you the illusion of space. So what you'll be doing is, you'll have your moments like walking down a corridor, for example. You do that in a very early sequence where you're walking down a school corridor and there's a person at the very end, and they suddenly charge towards you, and it's quite terrifying.
It's pretty scary.
But then you've got other things like, for example, a cornfield. Now, the idea of being in a cornfield with 8 people chasing after you, searching with only the flashlights that you can see through the sort of husks of the corn, that is pretty terrifying itself. Yeah. But my worry was I would get caught or get seen, and I'd charge off only to get completely lost or come up against a fence or something like that and be like, well, I can't go anywhere, and then die. But what they've actually done is they've kind of given you the illusion of space where, because of the placements of enemies, it meant that it funneled you from one to the other to there. So
by avoiding them,
so I played it with you guys, and I found the next encampment that I needed to go to, and I was like thinking, oh, that was pretty lucky. I wouldn't do that again. But I went home and played it myself, and the exact same thing happened, but I kind of went a different route around it. It still funneled me back through. So it uses space really cleverly.
That's a clever way of doing it. Like, they shepherd you into it by using enemies that you can run away from. That's smart. Like, you're just inherently going to run away from it.
Yeah.
Like, that's clever.
And I think, for example, in that situation, I think that because I went too far off to the right, for example, I think they automatically started spotting me.
Right.
Like, so I think that they must have done some little tweaks, because there's a few times where the enemy AI is kind of almost beckoning you to come towards them in a way that you'll trigger the next thing. So it's really useful how they use, like you say, enemies as kind of like police to push you into the next bit.
Okay.
Which I've not really seen done before. So
no, well, I was going to say, one of the things that makes it drastically different from your Resident Evils or other similar stuff, PT even, is mechanically you've got the classic Outlast camera and no weapons. I mean, maybe later on, but as far as I'm aware,
it stresses that at the very beginning. That these guys are not fighters.
Right.
Like, it says you will need to run from every encounter unless it's a quick time event or something like that. Like, and that's great as well, because by setting that as clear as day on the front page, it means that you go in there and think, oh, well, I can't go toe-to-toe with them. Not like I shouldn't or I'll lose.
Yeah.
This is like, oh, okay, if I see somebody, I better be prepared to run. And these guys are surprisingly quick.
Right.
Like, I thought that they'd be like the Resident Evil 4 guys, where they walk slowly towards you and just kind of like get in your way.
Yeah.
But these guys, as soon as they spot you, they're charging after you. Yeah, and they're quite clever as well. Like, you can run into a room and they won't just disappear. They won't just kind of like go,
we've lost him.
He definitely isn't in this giant cupboard that's over here.
Must have been a rat. The number of guards who say, oh, it was a cat or something.
Yeah. Well, it's this one they go like, okay, cool, the Lord will find you, or whatever they say, and then they'll just be like, have a quick peek under the bed or something like that. But sometimes they won't see you, and sometimes they will.
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Mechanically, with the camcorder, that's back. It's got a few new tricks on it. For example, the microphone is used a lot more now. So, for example, if you're behind a door and you're not sure if somebody is out there who's going to come and grab your ghoulies, you can pretty much turn that on, and it will give you the sound bars, like
in stereo.
Yeah, so you can basically just go, okay, there's somebody there, and there's somebody here.
Yeah.
And then you'll see that sort of like disappear, or the levels will die down. You go, okay, cool. Well, I can go that way now.
Yeah. I thought that was really clever, because what I really like is, if you're gonna have some kind of either eagle vision or that kind of almost extrasensory ability, if there's no context for it, I really dislike that kind of thing.
Yeah,
it
definitely.
really like throws me off, and so I think it's a big point of debate actually with a lot of like within the gaming community. Some people are like, look, it's fine, it's just to help the game move on, it doesn't matter, but I really like that it's got a context there within the camera. And
also the fact that you use it drains your battery.
Right.
And batteries are scarce. They are really scarce in this game. Like, I was being pretty liberal with the use of it in our first playthrough, and I was running out very quickly. I mean, they wouldn't last more than like 2 minutes of battery. Whereas when I was playing at home, I was trying to be much more conservative with it, and I did stock up a few, but they all got completely wasted. I feel like the game, I don't know if this is true, but it feels like the game adjusts its difficulty depending on how much supplies you have.
Okay.
Like, I was in a situation where this guard just like wouldn't move. He was constantly coming back to the same spot, and I noticed that when I had used some more batteries to try and like sneak past him, it was only then that he disappeared.
Okay.
So I don't know if maybe the game reads that.
Yeah.
It'd be great if it did, because it'd be quite a cool way to control it. But the character models, they still look a bit funky. I mean, it's Outlast is good at doing monsters, but not very good at doing human faces.
Right.
I always find that they look very, very gaunt and very kind of like stylized.
Yeah, it was a bit, stylized is the good word, because it's not that they looked bad, but they kind of looked a bit out of place. Like, because the world looks quite good, I think.
I thought the world was beautiful.
Nice
like,
looking.
if you can call it beautiful.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
But the characters themselves look good, but like they've been lifted from like, almost not like cell shaded, but like a bit of a hand-drawn quality to them.
Yeah, it was the same problem that I've had with Far Cry 3.
Right.
It was kind of like they went for a kind of realistic look, but because they were, I don't know, these features were exaggerated in a way that just didn't look 100% human.
Yeah.
It's weird, but it works for the game's favour, because everything's like stylized, it's maintained, it's consistent. And then when you see the giant sort of woman who carries around a cross that she loves to embed in your groin.
She actually does.
God, I mean, she's scary.
Yeah.
She's called Martyr, by the way.
Martyr?
Yeah, get it? Martyr? Because she's a martyr.
She's a martyr.
Yeah, I kind of groaned at that. But, I mean, actually that brings me on to maybe a negative point.
Okay.
I think that the writing of this game isn't as strong as it likes to think it is.
Right.
I was really invested in the story of going to find out what was going on with this girl and explore. But I do find that a lot of the plot points, for example, they're revealed in strange ways. Okay. So one of the new features of this is that you can record events.
Yeah, that's cool.
So you can go up to something, for example, a burning helicopter, or another one was like there was these people that were tied to stakes and being burned alive, and you can basically hold up your camera and record them, and it fills a little sort of red dial. When you do that, it allows you to unlock the footage you've just recorded, but it will add an extra element of dialogue from the character, explaining either what he should do next or a little bit of backstory about it. Now that's fine, but there was quite a few logic gaps because, for example, the example I've just given you with the woman carrying the cross, no one has said her name, no one's even given an inclination that she's even on the same team as the regular bad guys.
Yeah.
But you record her dragging this body off, and then you watch it back again, and he goes, yeah, they call her Martyr. It's like, well, how do you know that? And unless there's a late game twist, like he's been brainwashed or that he's suddenly part of this cult, it's impossible for him to know that based on the player having experienced everything with him.
I mean, even the first example you gave, this is, I mean, it's not a major spoiler, it happens literally at the start of the game, is your helicopter crashes, and you're on there with your girlfriend, and you go down to the crash site, you got sort of separated, and as you film it, if you then play that clip back, he goes, she wasn't in there, she's dead.
Yeah, and it's like...
You'd not even reached it yet.
Yeah,
You've been over there filming, and then instantly you went into your menu and were like, oh, just watch that back and see if... And then he goes, yeah, she's not there. It's like, well, you've not even looked.
I mean, it's a minor complaint,
of course
but it is still a complaint, because in a game that's so invested in immersing you, that's kind of the things that break it.
Yeah.
It's a clever storytelling device, don't get me wrong, like I've not seen it being used anywhere else, but maybe it could have been worked in a little bit more. Like, I don't know.
All they really need to do is add some checks, like, has some dialogue been used where she's referred to as Martyr?
Yeah.
If so, he then says that when he watches that, and if not, there's like a placeholder bit of text there or something.
I mean, that would be good if they did that.
Something like that. So what do you think of the actual theme of the narrative? Because it's got all this like religious context and stuff, and
yeah, I mean, there seems to be a lot more of a focus on sexuality in this game, which I think is really refreshing, because a lot of horror games focus on the devil, and while this game does focus on two groups of sort of religious zealots led by Daddy and a load of heretics led by some unknown entity, it's basically all about having sex, the Antichrist, having babies, and cutting said babies out of people. Right. It seems like the village that you end up in the beginning is kind of got no kids in, because of the fact they keep killing their kids because they're afraid that they're going to grow up to be the Antichrist. It's messed up.
Well, that's not conducive to a sustainable race.
No, it's not, but I don't think that they're in any mental state to do that. And on the other side, you've got a guy who literally opens with the line, I watched my father f your God. And that just sets up his character pretty much in there. He's very sexual.
Lovely. It's a nice place to be. Yes. Not a nice place to grow up, because you won't last very long. No. But once you're grown up, there's sex everywhere, and no children to worry about. So
I mean, it sounds like an absolute paradise, doesn't it? Well, you could sign up today.
No music in the game, as far as I remember, or was the music?
Very, very limited use of non-diegetic music. So you've got basically this really lovely sounding violin scratch, and it's I don't know how they've done it, but it's not your typical sort of like sort of thing. It sounds like a nail's being pulled over it. It is just so uncomfortable, and it's out of tune. It's out of like there's no time signature to it. It just come in randomly, and when you get spotted by somebody, it's like full orchestral, like boom, 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 boom. It gets really kind of intense, but you're so in the moment, you don't realise the jarring jump from nothing to full orchestral sound.
I didn't even remember there being music. In a way, that's good. Yeah. Because I was obviously enjoying the atmosphere and stuff, but you know, like you say, this game is all about immersion, and you don't want people to be broken away from that with things like in-your-face like music and stuff like that. So
I genuinely believe that that's why they've said that they're not going to support VR for it as well. Because the developers have been a bit coy on the subject of VR for it, because it seems perfect for it.
Well, they did Rush of Blood, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, and it's kind of like, well, why wouldn't you put Outlast 2 as being VR? And they've come out and said, we're not going to support it, and I think it's because of the fact that they wanted their game to control better than Resident Evil 7, with its kind of like angular turning system. They wanted this game to be able to run, to sort of jump, to be able to look around all the time without, and also look behind you at a moment's notice.
That's nice.
They wanted to have as much control so they can take it all away from you.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. So overall, then, with all this, like with the immersion and the weird sexual like storyline and everything else, is it a scary game?
Yes, it is a really scary game, and I think that if it can continue with the pace that it's been setting now, it will be a very solid, not perfect, but very, very solid horror title.
Okay.
I've experienced some genuinely pant-wetting moments, mainly to do with Marta, because she is quite persistent.
She's quite a beast.
She does not know the meaning of no.
No.
And she hunted me down into a hunting cabin once. I was downstairs. She had to come down this one sort of wine cellar entrance, and she's coming down super slowly.
Yeah.
And I'm hiding in a barrel, and the barrel's got holes that have been like punched out of it, so you can kind of see, and you're not allowed to really peek over or she'll spot you. And I could hear her talking. She was like mumbling like Bible phrases.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure if it was the end of the phrase or what, but she just basically stopped in front of the barrel and just said, "Well, I can't see you, but I can smell you."
Oh my God.
And then I was like, so I decided to tilt the camera up, and she's looking down into the barrel, and then she just like starts like shaking her head almost and just goes, "Only God can save you," and then walks away. And I'm like, did she see me and was just kind of toying with me, or was that just a really lucky escape?
Yeah.
But either way, I was in the barrel and I'm like,
what do I do?
Holy hell.
Is she waiting for me outside the barrel? Okay, well, so you'll be doing a full review when you've had some more, when you've wet some more pants.
Yes, yeah. My psychiatrist bill is going to be very high this month.
So stick with WhatCulture Gaming for a review for Outlast 2. And also, loads of reviews coming this week and next week.
Just shed loads.
It's all happening at once. So stick with us. And lists. Lists.
Lists.
I've been Peter from WhatCulture.com.
And I've been Jules from WhatCulture.com.
And we'll see you soon.
And he'll see you soon.